All right, in order to 3D print, one of the first things you might want to do is pick up an object to print. Thingiverse is a good place to start. There's all kinds of free things here, but what I'm going to do actually is go to the calibration print objects, and we're going to look at 3D Benchy. And 3D Benchy is a very common one that's used both for calibration and sort of a torture test for a 3D printer. So let's go. Here we go, Thingiverse. And we'll just click download all files. Now, it does ask you if you want to tip the designer. I'm not going to do that right now. It should just start to download. Hopefully, there it goes. I don't have to click anything else. It is good to make sure they're Creative Commons, and I think everything that's on Thingiverse is free or in the Creative Commons, so you should be fine. The license will be inside of here as well, too. Okay, let's go and have a look. There it is. We'll right-click, and we'll go Extract All. Click Extract. And we're going to get a bunch of files. There's also a license and a README. It's always good to have a look at the README. It'll tell you a little bit of information about it, perhaps who made it. And images here if you want to have a look at what you might be printing. But really all you need are just the files. And if we go in here, there's a whole bunch of files, bunch of STLs. And wow, there's a bunch here. I think the one we'll just use is 3D Benchy. That's the basic one. So let's open up Cura now. I may already have it open here. Yep, here it is. And we'll go File, Open File. We'll go to our Downloads, 3D Benchy, Files, and 3D Benchy. And there it is. And we could actually, at this point, do what's called slicing. And slicing is how we prepare it for our specific model of 3D printer. And this is a very important point. You want to make sure you select the right printer. We have two in our lab that can use Cura. We have a CR10 and an Ender 3. Okay, I'm going to make sure I've got the Ender 3 selected. That's what I'm going to be printing on. And then the next thing to do is to look at all of our settings. And there are a myriad of settings. We're just going to go with the absolute basics right now. Standard quality is fine. You could go for finer quality if you want to. We can set our walls, our wall thickness. That's a common one. Infill is a common one. I normally leave it at 20%. That should be fine. Infill line distance. Yeah, again, these are things that would be good to look up. So if you print and you're having trouble with the printing, you're going to want to go back and go through some of these settings. Even things like speed. Sometimes it would seem, or perhaps it would seem that printing faster is better, but it's not always, because that can cause other problems. Okay, travel, cooling, I usually just take the defaults here. I'm going to leave all of them for now. Let's see, fan speed, we'll leave that. Support, okay. So in some cases, you need what's called support. This is specifically a torture test, so it doesn't want you to put support in. But we could generate support automatically. And what that would do is if we have an overhang, it'll put some fairly weak structures in there that should be relatively easy to remove so that we're able to print it. And normally if you get an object that needs supports, it'll tell you somewhere in the documentation, make sure you enable supports. Okay, and we could probably enable these and then I'm going to disable them as well. But that's all it takes to enable them, and we can also specify where we want them and how much. Okay, build plate adhesion, and this is raft. I normally use raft. All it does is actually print like an oval, in this case, around the base of this, and it just increases the likelihood that we'll have good adhesion to the plate. This can be a problem on some plates, and I would recommend that the smaller the contact surface, the more likely I am personally to use raft. So I've got that enabled, and we don't have dual extrusion. That means we've actually got two print heads. We've only got one. And there's so many other things that we could set inside of here. Let's go to recommended. Okay, that's, yes. So recommended gives you just some real basics. Okay, and yes, we do have adhesion set. In fact, you could just start here with just the recommended settings. In most cases, that's going to be enough to get your print going. So now we're going to do what's called slicing. And again, this is specific to our printer. Make sure you've got the right printer selected. It is a 0.4 millimeter nozzle. That can be changed. Okay, we'll click Slice. Tells us how long it's going to take. It tells us how much PLA we're going to use. And then look at this, it detects that we have a removable drive in there, and yeah, we'll save it to that, save to removable. And we can even eject a drive. And just like that, we're ready to go and plug this into our printer and start 3D printing. Okay, one thing that should be mentioned is that when you click on the slice button, what's going to happen is it's going to convert this from an STL file into a G-code file. STL is a file that we can actually edit, manipulate, change, and that contains all the 3D information that describes the object generically. That can be used on any 3D printing software. G-code, though, is specific code that tells it exactly how we're going to print this on our specific printer. And so that's why there's a difference between the two. A 3D printer cannot print an STL file. It has to first be sliced and converted into code that tells it how to create this object, how to do the actual, how to create each layer and what each layer is going to look like.